Welcome back, everyone. I don't have a lot of time this evening, and I won't be home later tonight. So I decided I would give you guys an encounter a little earlier this evening. This one was anonymous, but he did give out some locations. Not exact, but close enough. If you're listening, you're a legend, and I'm eternally grateful for you being here. Now grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. I promised myself I would never be writing this. But what happened to me about a year ago is something I can't get past. I live in a small town in West Virginia. The mountains around here are thicker than fleas on a stray dog's back, and I often go for walks in the evenings to clear my mind. It was one of those evenings, warm, with a slight cool breeze, and I decided to take a different trail than usual. I never do that anymore. The trails don't have names. It's just trails I have carved out personally around my home. It's all public land and is absolutely beautiful back there. I live outside of Davis, West Virginia, and these trails cross into Blackwater Falls State Park. I've walked back there for many years and never had a bad experience with any type of wildlife whatsoever. But lately I'm wrestling with the question, is this thing even considered an animal or something different entirely? It was about 2 hours before dark and I started my walk through the usual trails. I could probably walk it blindfolded. About 45 minutes in, I was pretty deep into the woods. Right as I was about to turn around to head back, I saw an overgrown trail off to the right that I hadn't seen before. It was easy to miss as it looks like an old game trail and is hidden by the weeds and the underbrush. I decided, me being me, that I would follow it for a bit just out of curiosity. After all, at the time, as far as I knew, the only thing that I had to worry about out here were the real monsters, people. I'd never heard of Dogman or any creature of the sort. I had heard all the Bigfoot stuff, of course. Hell, I think everyone has at some point. But I wasn't the type person to believe that. I'm 57 years old, and I've been in the woods pretty much my entire life, and never heard or saw anything that would make me think things like this actually exist. But I'm also man enough to admit when I'm wrong, and I was dead wrong. I followed that game trail for maybe 20 minutes. I came upon this weird stick structure looking thing. It's hard to describe, but it was pretty good sized trees, crisscrossed in such a way that it didn't seem natural by any means. It looked almost like the frame of a teepee with no outer walls. I was very puzzled and curious at the same time. I decided to get closer and check to see if these trees had fell during a storm and just made this by some miracle. I have seen stranger things happen. As I got closer, I knew right away this was not nature. This was purposely built by someone. Underneath the structure in the middle were small piles of what looked to be animal bones and several small, strategically stacked rock piles. I had no idea who or what would do this, and most importantly, why someone would do this. As I'm about to leave, I noticed how quiet things had gotten all of a sudden. That was my cue. It was time I make tracks and get the hell out of there. Off to my right as I'm leaving was a rock bluff probably 30 or 40 feet straight up. The structure was at the bottom, and I began to hear movement on the top of that cliff. I knew it was big because I could hear its footsteps over my own. It wasn't sneaking. It wasn't trying to be quiet. It wanted me to know that it was coming. I began to smell this weird chemical smell that burned my nose and eyes. I could still hear the walking above me. Then it just stopped. I was looking up, but couldn't see over the top edge. But I knew something was definitely up there, and it was watching me. The smell got really strong and my eyes began to water. I started walking faster to get out of there. I didn't know what was happening, and I wasn't wanting to find out. I may have made it 20 yards away from that structure, and I heard something slam to the ground behind me so hard I felt it in my feet. Before I could even turn around, I heard the most evil, heart-gripping growl I have ever heard before. When I turned to look, I saw something that was impossible, but I was looking at it. Standing there on the backside of that structure was what can only be described as a creature that was half man and half wolf. It was muscular with a thick coat of dark fur, and its eyes glowed a bright yellow. It had a long snout and pointy ears, and it was standing at least 9 feet tall on 2 legs. It tilted its head to the side like it was trying to figure out what I was, or maybe sizing me up. I'm not sure. I froze. Part of me wanted to run, but I couldn't move. It stared right at me for what felt like an eternity. Then, without warning, it made a snarling type face. I swear it looked like it was smiling at me. It slowly started walking around the structure headed my way. Its movements were slow and very unnatural. I did have a handgun, and I immediately grabbed it. As soon as I got my hand on it, this thing stopped, dropped down to all fours, and took a stance like it was about to charge me. I took aim, and as soon as I clicked off the safety, it opened its mouth really wide, unnaturally wide, and this high-pitched scream came out. My ears immediately began ringing, and I couldn't hear anything. I just started pulling the trigger, and this creature moved so fast, there is no way that I hit it. It jumped at least 30 to 40 feet, grabbed onto that cliff face, and climbed up and over it like it was Spider-Man. It was like nothing to this thing to scale that face. When I finally found my legs, I hurried back the way I came. I knew it was chasing me, I could hear it, and I could still smell that chemical smell. By the time I reached the end of that game trail and got back onto the main trail that led me back home, I was on the verge of having a stroke or a heart attack. I had no idea what true fear felt like until that day. I listened for a second or two, trying to breathe. It was quiet, not a sound. So I took off, headed back home. I never heard another sound or saw that thing after that. I think it just wanted me gone, to be honest. Since that night, I've done a bit of research and found that others have reported similar sightings. But the structure I found seems to be something related to Bigfoot sightings, not Dogman. It was clear this thing didn't want me near that structure, because when I left that area, it just let me go. Has anyone else heard of anything like this before? And that chemical smell was brutal. I can't explain that either. Hell, I don't know how to explain any of this. To anyone wondering if I'm crazy enough to go back there again, absolutely not. I'm curious, but I'm not a damn fool. I'll never go back into those woods. Even if I look across my backyard and see those trails, I literally begin to physically shake. That's my encounter with what is known as a Dogman. Pretty unbelievable, to be honest. Hell, I wouldn't believe me either. I used to laugh at people that said they saw Bigfoot. That stuff was just plain silly in my mind. But who's silly now? I still take my evening strolls. I just stick to sidewalks and roads, very well lit areas. If you use this story, I appreciate it. Hopefully someone else has had a similar experience and they have some answers or information about this structure thing. Keep God on one side and a weapon on the other. God bless everyone. Be safe. Anonymous. Well, guys, does anyone know anything about this weird structure? I've never heard of this type thing related to a Dogman before. Like he said, this is a Bigfoot thing, right? I appreciate you sending your encounter, my friend. It was absolutely terrifying, to say the least. I hate to hear that this encounter has taken your love for walking in the woods, but I can't blame you. It's hard to come to terms with this sort of thing. I'm out of time, and I hope you guys enjoyed this evening's upload. Be sure and share this video, subscribe, and punch that like button in the face on your way out. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, good night.